Umaga.
There is certainly enough demon-filled people in the world and demon-inspired people to cause the best of us at times to become frustrated. And just realize that if you get angry and frustrated over some situations in life, that you were not the first and you won't be the last. But we are trying to give you some practical keys that will help you in terms of dealing with the moments and the times that you get frustrated and feel like doing something illegal, criminal, violent, profane. And if you don't have another better way that is thought out in advance, you'll go that way by default. It is so much better to live your life by design than to live it by default. And so this is to help you to be able to design the kind of life where you won't have the regret of wondering, why did I do that? Here in the 5th chapter of the book of Exodus, beginning with the first verse, notice, afterward Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go. And so they said, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go 3 days' journey into the desert and sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. And then the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Go back to your labor. And Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are many now, and you may make them rest from their labor. So the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, you shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And you shall lay on them the quota of bricks which they have made before. You shall not reduce it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry out, saying, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Now I want you to realize that this is Moses' first encounter with Pharaoh, telling him what God said. Now you can imagine when he was up on the mountain and God was speaking to him mouth to mouth, face to face, and how I'm sure he was tingling with the presence of God, just in the awe of the majesty of what was happening. Particularly the way that it was portrayed in the 10 Commandments by Charlton Heston. You know, with that kind of experience, my goodness, it gives us chills just looking at it. You know, when God, that slow, deep voice of God talking to Moses, just run something over me just with that experience. It felt like I was up on the mountaintop with him. And now he goes from that mountaintop experience down to his first encounter with Pharaoh to tell Pharaoh what God says. And Pharaoh admitted, listen, I don't know the Lord. I don't know who you're talking about. But I do know one thing, I'm not going to let anybody go any place. And if you all are asking to go someplace, it must be because you all are bored and you're idle. Get back to work. And now, since you got so much idle time, I'm not going to give you any straw to make your bricks. Find your own straw, but don't let the quota of bricks that you have been making decrease. You need to keep it up. And so notice, jump down to verse 18. Therefore go now and work, for no straw shall be given you, yet you shall deliver the quota of bricks. And the officers of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble after it was said. And it was said here, you shall not reduce any bricks from your daily quota. And then as they came out from Pharaoh, they met Moses and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. And they said to them, let the Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us abhorrent in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to kill us. And so Moses returned to the Lord and said, Lord, why have you brought trouble on this people? Why is it you have sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, neither have you delivered your people at all. Isn't it amazing that whenever we hear God tell us something, that we assume that it's going to happen overnight? But I've told you, whatever does not happen, if God says it, whatever it does not happen overnight, it will happen over time. It will happen over time. And so they had the expectation that it would happen. Isn't it amazing that when God spoke, instead of things coming in line with what God said, things got worse? Touch your neighbor, says sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. I mean, if you ever have to have medical treatment, you are actually better before you go for the treatment, because you have to be strong to endure what they're going to put you through. And they actually end up making it worse before they make it better. And it can make you sometimes feel as though you have missed God. And now Moses is like, well, God, now why did you send me down here? And now you got everybody mad at me, saying that I stirred up trouble. Remember, this was his first encounter with Pharaoh. And he thought that he was going to be able to just go there and attach God's name to it. And because he put God's name on it, he thought that everything was just going to snap in line. Like, oh, you've heard from God. Maybe that would have been different had he known God, but Pharaoh didn't know God, so Pharaoh didn't fear God because God had no reputation in his mind. So God has to make a reputation among the nations. That's one of the main reasons that God did all of those demonstrations of the 10 plagues that he brought upon Egypt, because then the fame of that was broadcast in various places around the earth. I've said to you that frustration is a deep, chronic sense or state of insecurity and dissatisfaction arising from unresolved problems or unfulfilled needs. If you have some unresolved issues in your life, problems in your life, or unfulfilled needs in your life, often the thing is called frustration. That's what we feel, frustration. I find people who are not blessed to be married like I am, and they're single, and then they get sexually frustrated. For that sake, I've counseled some people that were sexually frustrated, that were married. You figure that out. And so various people are frustrated for whatever reason, some because of unfulfilled needs, some because of unresolved problems in their life. There are a multitude of things that can actually frustrate us. It's hard to imagine the actor Samuel Jackson. 20 years ago, he was not an A-list celebrity. But 20 years ago, he found himself frustrated. A little-known actor who couldn't break through and get into major roles. And despite all of his wonderful, prodigious talent, right after his 41st birthday, he still couldn't claim any real notable work that he had done, only a few minor cameos. And that frustrated him, and it discouraged his life to the degree that he turned to cocaine. And it quickly developed into a dependency on the drug, and within a year he was at rock bottom. And there he was, lying unconscious on the kitchen floor, to be found by his wife LaTanya and his 8-year-old daughter. And his wife got him up from there and took him and checked him into rehab. And because it was very clear that he had a problem and that his problem was out of control. But less than 12 months later, he finally achieved stardom in his supporting role of Jungle Fever. And from then on, his reputation just grew steadily, and his career began to flourish. And today, he's regarded as one of Hollywood's finest and hardest working actors. One of the things that we learn from what happened to him is that nobody is immune to frustration and discouragement. I don't care who you are. Nobody is immune to frustration and discouragement. Regardless of personality, regardless of potential, regardless of your position, you will encounter some frustrating and disappointing things in this life. Now here's the key, is that how you respond to that frustration will determine your future. That's the key to your future. There are some people, when frustrating things happen to them, they're what you call splatters. You know how you have a blob of something, let's say, plops down on the ground, and they can't get up, and they act whether you're going to bouncer. And touch your neighbor, say, I'm a bouncer. Say, after this meeting is over, I'm gonna bounce. After you, they ride things back up to the. So listen, you have two choices. You have two choices. Whether I'm going to be a splatter or a bouncer. Whether I am going to get up or whether I'm going to give up. You got a choice. You have a choice. Touch yourself, say, I've got a choice. So no matter what happens to you, you can make a choice as to whether I'm going to give up or whether I'm going to get up from here. And if you are a bouncer, when you are who you are, realize it's just another thing. I got to get up from here. I got to try it again. You know, I've hit the ground, but I'm coming up. Baby, I got to get another job. This person left here. It's time. I got to hit the street. I got to fix up and go again. When you are a bouncer, you realize that you've got to rebound. You've got to rebound. Touch your neighbor. Say, you're sitting by the comeback kid. Whatever it is that you deal with in your life, you have the ability, just like Samuel Jackson, sat on cocaine, and he was able to come back. You see, it can be a real pivotal thing in your life during that time. It can be sometimes be rescued from destructive behavior. You have to be rescued from an individual. Thankfully, Samuel Jackson had a loving family around him. He had a wife, he had a family that supported him. You get into some addictions and you need some external support. You're who's having our you about don't just you still, it's like trying to scrape gum off your shoe. adversity, and they're able to the right rain cloud over their head. And everywhere you turn, it appears to be dark, and they can't even see light anywhere. And you tell them something that's good, and then you say, well, that's not. You will be surprised. They have stinking thinking. They have wrong thinking. They have negative expectations. They are operating their lives in fear. In fear. Now, I want you to listen very carefully for the definition of fear. Fear is expecting those things that you cannot see to come to pass. Now, let me give you the definition of faith. Faith is expecting those things that you cannot see to come to pass. That sounds awfully like the same definition for fear, doesn't it? You see, fear and faith are really the same thing. They operate in two different directions. It depends on which direction that you're going. So the person who's operating their life in fear, the splatter uses their faith to keep them down. And they use their fear to keep them down, and the bouncer uses their faith to get them up. It's the same power. You know, in the same way that worry is nothing but faith in reverse. Worry is a form of fear. Whenever you're worried about something, that's a power. That is a power. Job said, you remember that God had put a hedge around Job? Wonder what lowered the hedge to where Satan was able to attack him. In Job chapter 3, verse 25, it gives us a hint. Job said, the very thing that I have feared has come upon me. Fear has attractive power. Faith has attractive power. Whatever it is that you fear in your life will be drawn to you like a iron is drawn to a magnet. Your faith has power and your fear has power. Bullies can smell fear. They know who to mess with. Bullies are not crazy. They don't mess with everybody. They know that there are some folk that are crazy that will snap on you if you deal with them. They know who they can intimidate. They can smell fear. They can smell it. And so if you're in class and if you don't know the answer, have you ever been in that situation and the teacher just started looking around the room and there are 2 or 3 other children that's got their hand like, oh, Miss Johnson, oh. And then the teacher just totally looks over them and can smell the person who is totally ill-prepared. See, it draws them to you. Fear is a power. It is a power. It is expecting those things that you cannot see to come to pass. Faith is expecting those things that you cannot see to come to pass. And so it just depends on which direction you're going to go. So you have to have the right perspective. You must have the right perspective. If you ever see somebody frustrated out of their wits, angry or disappointed, disgusted over something, you've got to work to change their perspective. Let them know because this person walked out of your life, it is not the end of the world. There are more fish in the sea. You have to change the perspective. Change your perspective. Change your perspective. If you fail in doing something, change your perspective. Here's the perspective, is that I can't do anything right. Change the perspective to understand failure is not a person. Failure is an event. It is something that happened. Failure is an event. It is not a person. Don't make it personal. Don't associate what happened in your life or what happened to you as being the same with who you are. You have to change your perspective. It's all about your perspective. If you're going to get a person helped, it's because you can change their perspective. They're going to have to change their perspective. Because your perspective is nothing more than your outlook. Say outlook. And you remember that your outlook determines your outcome. So it is a tremendous part of that. So just remember that. So they have to be guided to a right perspective. To be guided to a right perspective. If you've ever gotten frustrated, remember that root part of that word frustrate means to deceive. Whenever you deceive, it means that you don't have the right perspective. You are looking at the person oftentimes that you might be in relationship with as your enemy. That's not your enemy. The devil is the enemy. Don't make them your enemy. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Keep the right perspective. Keep the right perspective. Keep the right perspective. And so when you see other people that get frustrated over things, you have to let them know, baby, you know, listen, we can get you another toy. Have you ever seen kids that have a fit because something broke? I remember as a child, I was down in my grandmother's hometown, and I was standing out there. I had gotten an ice cream cone, and my ice cream fell off of my cone. I thought the world had come to an end. I mean, you know, it was a hot day, and the whole bowl of ice cream fell completely off of my cone. I didn't want a cone. I wanted some ice cream. I had a fit. I cried. That's one of the few times I can remember crying. But see, I didn't have the right perspective. I just felt that, you know, if it's gone, it's just gone. You know, the people saw what happened, and they took it upon themselves to fix the little boy another ice cream cone and didn't have to pay for it because they saw the thing on the ground. It's not like I ate it up and then came back and tried to trick somebody out of some money. It was gone. And I had a new perspective. All that I could see is that I had lost it, and I thought the other folks that were with me, that they were enjoying that ice cream, and I had lost my cone. And I would never be able to enjoy. I had the wrong perspective. But as soon as they brought me another one, my whole perspective changed just like, I mean, it changed on a dime. I mean, it's like it had just been raining, and now the sunshine comes out, and I see a beautiful rainbow. And it was just a change of my perspective. So you can have negative things that will happen to you. And if you don't change your perspective, you'll be whining and disappointed and discouraged, all of those things happening to you. So you'll have to change your perspective. Here's the second thing. If you're going to help somebody who's really frustrated, not only changing their perspective, but they've got to be connected to the right people. They must be connected to the right people. Misery loves company. And so when you're having misery, the worst thing you can do is to go and hook up with other folks with misery. Because if they had the answer to cure the problem of misery, they wouldn't be dealing with the misery. So you need to go to somebody who's got your answer and not somebody who has your problem. But it's interesting that we find identity with other people that have been through the stuff that we have been through. It's like, you've been beat up? I've been beat up too, girl. And we find camaraderie. And here's the deal. If you find somebody else that has been through the same dysfunctionalism that you have been through, it normalizes it for us. It doesn't make us seem as though we're abnormal if all of our friends have the same issues going on in their life. They're dealing with the same thing. But if you don't want to stay there in that condition, you're going to have to gravitate to the right people in your life. I guarantee you that had Samuel Jackson had a wife who was also a cocaine addict, he wouldn't have been connected to the right person to help him to get out of his own addiction. You've got to be connected to the right people. And sometimes, just because you love somebody does not mean that you're the right person to pull them out. There are some people that are in so deep, they need professional help. Some of them need to be medicated. And I mean, we don't even have the skill to even know how to deal with some of the deep emotional entanglement. I know some psychologists and some psychiatrists, and I tell them, listen, I have some people that I need to refer to you. You know, I realize, now I believe in the power of prayer, I really do. But in the same way, you know, if my child broke his or her leg, I'm not just going to lay hands on it and pray for him at home. You know, we'll pray on the way to the doctor's office and the way to the hospital to have the leg set. You see, you know, sometimes you have to be able to get them in the company of the right people. And if you don't have the skill, at least have enough sense to say, you know what, this is over my head here. You see, Samuel Jackson's wife realized, this is over my head. I love him, but I can't help him. I got to get him to somebody who can help him. And so you have to get them to the right people, connect them to the right people. Sometimes you can have the right stuff in you, the right talent, the right skills, the right ability, but you've got to be connected to the right person who has the ability to open the door for you. It's that, baby, I really want to let you get in, but I don't have the authority. I got to connect you to the right person. So not only is it a matter of having a right perspective, you've got to be connected to the right people. Right perspective, right people. Right perspective, right people. Here's the third thing. If you're going to help somebody who's frustrated and you're frustrated yourself, you got to restore them with right words. Right words. Right words. Dr. Martin Lloyd Jones, who was one of the greatest heart surgeons at one time in England, he wrote in his book entitled Spiritual Depression, Its Cause and Cure, that most of your unhappiness in life is due to the fact that you are listening to yourself rather than talking to yourself. Now, isn't that interesting? He said most of your unhappiness in life is due to the fact that you are listening to yourself rather than talking to yourself. And if you think about it, whenever you're discouraged, you wake up in the morning and right away there are streams of negative thoughts that come to your mind. You have not invited them. You have not asked these thoughts to come to you. Negative thoughts just come to you in the same way that weeds pop up in a garden. Are you listening? I mean, so you don't have to do a seance and drum up negative thoughts that'll start making you feel bad. You know, some people just wake up some days, the hormones are messing with them, and negative thoughts, they just start feeling bad and guilty, down, depressed, suicidal, and it's just crazy stuff going on in them. But listen, instead of listening to yourself, talk to yourself. The Bible says speaking to yourselves.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.